Hey guys, so I thought I was going to talk you through what a bookmarklet is. Now, bookmarklets are pieces of JavaScript that you can add to your browser. Chrome is the one that I use, and the bookmarklet is basically just it's a history tab, a bookmark with some JavaScript in it where you can then click that bookmark and it will run that script on your page. And you can put any amount of JavaScript in there. Don't go crazy. I mean, there's no reason for you to load in like a massive framework or anything like that, but you can do pretty much anything with bookmarklets that you would be able to do with JavaScript on a web page. Now, you may ask, okay, why would I want to do this, Frederick? What's the use case? And I was thinking of a few, and one of my favorite use cases for myself when I use bookmarklets is to manage or make social media a little bit easier on me. So one thing that I like to do is to create a bookmarklet because if I'm honest, like I have friends and like I have certain interests that I enjoy, and the thing is that there's so much content when you have enough connections and there's so much going on that it's very difficult for me to just read through everything. So what I do is that I actually automate as much of that as possible because I still want to show my support for certain causes and I want to like things and so forth and be fairly active. But there's a lot of work entailed in doing that. So if you can automate some of that work, I think that's great, and that's something that I do with the use case that I'm going to show you now for connections. Now, I work at Ticketmaster, and Ticketmaster is a very, very, very large company with thousands of employees. And since I'm working at Ticketmaster, I want to connect with as many of the Ticketmaster employees as possible to grow my network and in turn grow their network. So the problem is that since there are so many of them, going through the list of my possible connection suggestions here on LinkedIn is a little bit of a hassle. As you can see when I scroll, they're loading in more and more connections. I mean, this is so there. It's going to be massive for me to do this. Like the scrolling would just be endless in search of all these Ticketmaster employees. So that's one of my first bookmarklets that I actually made, and I thought, hey, let's see if we can automate this. So I'll show you an example of what I'm thinking here. So here we see Rachel Powers, who is an employee at Ticketmaster. Now, if I have my inspector here and I click and inspect this element here, I can see that okay, the image here or the box is in a div, which is in where we have a few elements here, a link, and then we have a div containing some personal information, and then we have a div where the button itself is located. You can see that through the colors on the screen. Now, my thinking here is that I can see that she has the title Project Manager 3 at Ticketmaster, which is perfect for me because she has the word Ticketmaster, the name Ticketmaster, in her description. So that means that I can scroll through. I'm willing to bet that there are more people on this page who actually have that title, the Ticketmaster brand or the Ticketmaster name in some way. So what I can now do is that I can grab all of the people, I can create an automated script that scrolls down and creates, like, loads in as many contacts as connection suggestions as possible, and then it grabs everybody who works as Ticketmaster and clicks the connect button for me. And I actually went ahead and made a script that does exactly this, and I'm going to walk you through it. So the first thing we're going to do is that we're going to pick an arbitrary amount of times where we're going to scroll to the bottom of the page. The reason we want to do this is because we want in a very rapid way to build up a buffer of as many connection suggestions as possible. So we're going to use a timeout for that, and that basically is an asynchronous method that will run whatever is in the function body after a certain amount of time. So if we're iterating 50 times and then we're incrementing I by 1 every time, we're simply multiplying that by 500, then we're going to simply every half second for the coming 50 seconds or 25 seconds, we are going to execute this script here. And the script is very easy. It's just window.scroll to The zero as the first parameter is just how do you want to scroll on the x-axis. No, we don't want to do that. We just want to scroll on the y-axis. And basically, this is just an arbitrary large number that's going to hit the end of the page. So if we now run just this little script here in our console, let's go back and check what's happening, what's going to happen. You can see now that it's starting to scroll through all of these connections, just bam, 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 just keeps on scrolling, loading more and more and more and more connections. And that's exactly what we want, because we want to get as many Ticketmaster employees as possible in our connection suggestions. Now, that's half the puzzle done there. So now we have a way to load as many connections as possible. Now the fun part starts. So we're then going to have a timeout that is a little bit fancier. I'm going to walk you through all of this code just in a bit. So this is now set to 51 times 500, which means that this is going to run after all of these timeouts have been resolved, which is exactly what we want, because we want to run the actual gathering and clicking on all these buttons after the scrolling has been completed by the browser. So the first thing we needed to do was to identify the element that contains the information that we're looking for. So this is what's happening here. Document.query selector all, which will grab all the elements that have this class here. So if we go to the page and we look at this Mr. here, Bengt Rodung. Yes, he's looking like a very serious man. You can see here that he's encased in this exact element here. That's I think that's the one, right? What it was? Yeah, exactly. You see that class name here, which means that we're going to grab this list element for everybody who on the entire page. So we're grabbing all of these. That's the first thing we're going to do. And then we're going to map, and here is where the tricky parts come. So the mapping. So now we've grabbed all of the elements that have this class, and you can see here that I've wrapped this call in a array.prototype.slice.call method call. And the reason why we're doing this is because the default behavior of doing document.query selector all actually doesn't return an array, which is a requirement to do map after. It's actually an iterable, or like an array-like object, which is a really weird thing that JavaScript does. Don't even just know for now that you need to do this whenever you do document.query selector all if you want to start using map right off the bat, because you're not getting an array, you're getting some other weird type of object structure. Anyway, so now we have an array of all these elements, all these list items on the page. Then what we want to do is that we want to return another object which contains the text that we find here. We want the title, or the working title of the person that we are looking at. And then we want to get the connect button. So in order to figure that out, I simply went to, like you can see here, element.children1, children1, children0, children3, and then text content. Now I'll just show you I'm not going to walk you through exactly like that entire structure, but it's actually not that tricky. So what we can do, if we have a little bit of let's just grab all of this and do this. Now you can see that we got 13 hits because we haven't run the script that builds up the buffer, so we only have 13 items in our list here. And when we hover over this list item, we can see that we now see the entire element. And we open that in JavaScript land, and all of a sudden you see all of this information. This is all the JavaScript knows about this node in our DOM structure. And this is very useful because now we can see that there's a little children property here. And if we open that, we see that, oh, we're going inside of that element. And you can see that the second child in this list is actually the container that holds our button. So you can see that we do element.children2 and then children0. And the reason why we do children0 is because this container holds that button. And we need that to be able to click it later. But as you can see that there's a little bit of a deeper nesting going on the first element. We're not really we haven't reached the text that we're looking for just yet. So we click in again, and then we look at those children and we see, oh, we're getting closer. Okay, we're going to go down here into children's again, and then we're going to look at, yeah, this looks promising. 0 looks promising. And then we go down to children down here. Visually hidden, visually hidden. Yes, here we are. And if we click that element, or sorry, I clicked into it. We go up again. Come on now. Here you are. Yes, I opened this child element here. There's so much text here. Children, children, children. Text content div. Div. Oh my. Alright, here we are. So we go down to the children. Dun dun dun. Here we are. So we open the third element there. And you can see that the inner text or the inner HTML here is actually, since we're at the leaf element now, which is the text that we're looking for. I don't know if you can see that, but founding partner and chairman of the board Finewise AB, which is that in text that you're seeing over here. So now we know that by indexing through into these children arrays, we can traverse all the way down and then grab the text content, because that's the information that we're looking for. In order to be able to filter on this title, that we need that information. So now we're getting back an object that holds two things: the text that contains the job title of the person and the connect button that we need to click if we want to connect with that person. And then we simply have a filter here that takes that object, it looks at the text property that we have here and does an index off on, in my case it's Ticketmaster, and checks, well, if this is not -1, in other words that the name Ticketmaster is in the title, then you keep that value. And then we map, so we convert the object over to object.connectButton, and then finally we for each on these buttons and simply run a click event on them. So what's going to happen now if I just run this script in my browser? It's going to start, as you can see, it's going to start iterating down, building up the buffer, and then it's going to mass click all of the elements that hold that has, or rather the people who have the word Ticketmaster or the name Ticketmaster in their job title. Now, as you can see, copy pasting this works absolutely fine, but we don't want, as you can see now, it's starting to queue up all of these requests. So I'll simply stop it because we don't have to watch that. So in order to make this into a bookmarklet so that it's reusable whenever we want, instead of having to copy paste it like this, I'll simply copy paste it, this source code that we have here, put it in a new tab because I don't want to mess up the original code, and then I will do a find replace, and I will make sure that I am using regular expressions. So as you can see that I'm going to do it on a new line. This is the character for targeting new lines through regexes. So as you can see in the highlights here, all the new lines are being targeted, and then I do a simple replace all, and now we have all of this information on the same line. So this is no longer really humanly readable. But the reason why I'm doing this is because bookmarklets, at least in Chrome, they won't work if you have a new line in there. So ideally you simply do, because remember that JavaScript doesn't care about the new line characters. This is perfectly valid. And then finally we do JavaScript as the protocol, and then we copy paste that. So JavaScript colon and then your code. Copy paste this, and now we add a bookmark, but instead of just adding it, we do edit, and in the URL field here we put our code. So click save, and now I have my script here, so let's see if it runs. And it runs perfectly. As you can see, it's starting to run the script, and yeah, it's going to run the exact same script that we just made. Now, This is really powerful, guys. This is just a single use case that I could think of that for me was fairly useful. I've used this quite a lot. To me, it's been very useful. And this is by no like by not even a long shot the only thing you can do. Anything you can do through JavaScript you can do like you can create a script for anything you can do with JavaScript on any page, run that script on that page and have it being executed just as if, as any JavaScript on the page. So changing colors, changing styles, or clicking things, all that's good stuff you can do through these bookmarklets. And when you even with a little bit, just a tiny bit of knowledge about JavaScript, even this, because this is not that tricky code, this is fairly beginner level stuff, you can start to create really powerful tools for making your life a little bit easier when you're working with web pages.